Do you trust Ryan Poles to fix this mess going forward?
I have to vote no right now. I want to. My heart says I want to, but how can I use my football brain and come to the conclusion that yes, they had the opportunity. You had the opportunity to upgrade your coach heading into this season after you had drafted a quarterback first overall. You had a chance to bolster your offensive line going in. If you didn't do it then, am I just going to trust that you're going to do it now?
No, that's blind faith.
Yeah.
And then,
I want to believe.
This was spurred to me asking you after you watched the film.
Yeah.
I said to you, I go, Waddle, when we knew it, how didn't Ryan Poles know it that he had the wrong coach? When we knew it, how didn't Ryan Poles know that he didn't have a good enough offensive line? And when they interview 9 offensive coordinators, how do they get the worst one? And he's gone after 9 games. How am I now supposed to trust, even if he does get rid of Matt Eberflus, that he's going to get the right head coach?
Do you anticipate that this will be the valley in terms of how you feel about this team? Like, this is, I don't know how to define it. I'm missing the word for it. But will this be
the rock bottom moment?
Yeah. I mean, or do you anticipate maybe next week at this time we're going to be talking about, because that if you lose to the Packers, you should be beating the Packers, especially in your own building consistently. That's what good franchises do. But that hasn't happened. But when you lose to the Patriots, that Patriots team 19-3 in dominating fashion on your own field, I don't know that it gets worse than that.
Well, look, if we're using history as our guide.
Here comes a 50 burger.
And we're looking at 10 years ago, and we're looking at the Bill Lazor to Matt Nagy to this and to that. It can always get worse.
So
why would we to believe that it wouldn't get worse from here?
Well, that's why I voted no. But again, I'm in a valley right now. I feel like I'm in quicksand and I'm going down quickly at the moment. I want to say yes. How did you vote?
I can't trust him right now.
Right,
and
that's where I'm at.
So, and that's the way Bears fans feel at this moment. Things could change quickly because, look, at the beginning of the year, we trusted him. 6,500 people have voted already. 6,500. Vote at my Twitter handle, at Waddle and Silvy. 72.6% of the people say no. They don't trust Ryan Poles to clean up the mess.
There was a good portion of it, a percentage of it, that was blind faith heading into this year, considering how we felt about the offensive line and going into this year with the first pick of the draft as your quarterback with the same coaching staff. So there was a certain degree of blind faith when we all said 9-7 or 9-8, 10-6, 11-6, 9-7, however it goes. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe they'll go to the postseason. That there had to be a certain element of blind faith, considering we all sat here and talked to each other and looked at each other in the eye and go, I don't feel great about this offensive line. I think they should have made a coaching change. But yet we all went in this direction. They still
upgraded, but here was something that I misjudged. When last year I cited the 3 games that they blew, that we've talked about ad nauseum, the Denver game, the Detroit game, the Cleveland game, we all said, hey, they should have won 10. At the very least, they should have won 9 because they won 7. If you give them 3 or you give them 2 of the 3, those are 9. What we never figured in the math is Eberflus is always going to lose those games. With him as on your sideline, dissecting things in real time, there's always going to be another one, whether it's the Commanders game, whether it's the Colts game. There's always another one. They don't just stop all of a sudden magically when you don't have an advantage with your head coach. You're at a disadvantage every game with him on your sideline.
And that's how we felt when the season kicked off.
Yeah.
And when you decided to use the first pick of the draft on Caleb Williams, I think we were in unison that you should have made an upgrade at the coaching position as well. I would say to Ryan Poles, my answer to your question is no, but please do me a favor, change the narrative.
Yeah, please. Make us wrong.
Make me feel differently. I want to be proven wrong.
Yes. Let's go to Ray in Oak Lawn. You're on ESPN 1000. What's up, Ray?
Hey, what's going on, boys? How come nobody ever talks about Mike Shanahan as like a
he doesn't
advisor?
Want to come back. I don't think he wants to.
I'm not saying come back, but pick his brain. I mean, he's getting old. All these new coaches, McDaniels and the LaFleur, all these guys came from him in Washington.
He's the godfather.
Listen, I think it's a great idea, but it has to be something that is important to the franchise. And as we have found out, they don't like to get outside of their self-imposed comfort zone. I would definitely look. If you were going through the process of trying to hire a new football coach at the end of this year, I'd call everybody. Maybe I'd call Theo too. I don't know. I'm just calling anybody that's been there and done that and built an organization, especially a guy like Shanahan. I think it'd be a good idea to pick his brain. Whether or not he'd be receptive to that, whether or not the Bears people up at House Hall would be receptive to doing it, I have no idea, but what could it hurt?
Of course. Remember, I think the famous Shanahan photo where they're all there with McVay and younger Shanny and all the other assistant coaches.
McDaniel,
LaFleur, they're all in the picture
Raheem
with
Morris.
the Redskins. Yeah. I believe that team won 4 games. I think it's like the 2013 Redskins.
Yeah, everybody has a down season.
Well, but it's also but they also the first year they did, then they came back, and that was the first year under RG3. Because I'm actually Michael Silver's book, The Why Is Everything, is actually a lot about Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, and there's a lot of chapters on that year in particular and how it played out. Mike Shanahan's,
but he also made a bad move with knowing that RG3 was hurt.
Well, the book covers that. You know what? I would say at the very least, Silvy,
read it.
I hope Ryan Poles reads that book.
Yeah. Because
it's a great book about 5 guys who are head coaches in this league right now who are all considered at the forefront of offensive football.
And I would say, listen, it's again with coaches, it's not linear at all times. Andy Reid didn't win a Super Bowl to year 19 or 20, but he had a lot of good years in there.
A lot of winning years.
A lot of them.
Went to a Super Bowl, went to several NFC championships. Andrew downtown, you're on ESPN 1000. What's up, Andrew?
Hey, gentlemen, with the caveat that I like Caleb, I have high hopes for him, allow me to make the following point, okay? Why do we continue to call the Carolina trade one of the best trades ever? Okay, Poles gets a pass. Let's look at why we made it. We made it because we misevaluated C.J. Stroud. Stroud could have gone number 1. We all know that. Poles only gets a pass because the Panthers took Bryce Young. I'm not saying the trade's a done deal, but as it stands now, would you rather have C.J. Stroud than have made that Carolina trade? If your answer to that question is yes, well, then how can one's opinion be that it was a great trade, let alone a good one? Stroud's got 6,500 pass yards, 35 touchdowns in 25 games. That's with a terrible O-line.
Here's my question to you, Andrew. They wanted C.J. Stroud. The owner in Carolina said, no, you got to take Bryce Young. Nick Saban told me to take Bryce Young. If C.J. Stroud ended up with the Panthers and how dysfunctional they are, is C.J. Stroud C.J. Stroud?
Well, I mean, I'm not worried about the Panthers more than the Bears. I mean, the Bears have a terrible offensive line.
But that's part of the equation on why I always give credit to that trade is because he didn't have to make the trade then. Remember, it was unconventional when he made the deal. He also had a deal lined up with Houston as well, and he elected then to make the deal instead with Carolina once he got his way with DJ Moore. Like, there was a lot to it. He could have waited. Other general managers would have been, I'm taking this to draft day. Ryan Poles was smart enough to know when he got the best offer, and he jumped on it. So you've got to still give credit for results. You know, you are what your record says, and that, to me, is still a good trade with all the personnel he got back.
Yeah, you know, it certainly could be. I'm just looking at it like I'd rather have Stroud than have made that trade. You know, I know he got a lot back. You know, we've been searching for a quarterback since my grandfather was watching the Bears at Wrigley Field. You know, if C.J. Stroud's a stud, that guy makes multiple throws a game. Our heads would explode if Caleb made those throws.
No, I would just say, Andrew, what I would say is, and I get it, you're I won't even call it an argument, but your perspective is coming from a position of strength right now. Through 9 games, my defense of it being a good trade and them using it on Caleb Williams, I'm arguing from a position of weakness, especially after the last 3 games. I would say give it a little bit of time. You may end up being right 3, 4, 5 years from now, but it's way too early to say. I still believe it was an excellent trade.
They still have a second-round pick coming.
Yeah.
And like, there are a lot of other things to give to go after him for. The Carolina trade and not picking C.J. Stroud at that point Wasn't one of I understood the rationale that they needed to give Justin another year.
Yeah.
He was coming off that great rushing season, and you were hoping that the pass game would then go to the next level the next season.
I don't. At this point, again, it's way too early to sit here and tell you I regret that trade. I think it was a good trade, and I still have high hopes for it, netting them a pretty good haul, for a lack of a better term.